Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined by energy and environment reporter Jeremy Beaman. Jeremy, big OPEC Plus news this week. Really big implications, potentially at least, for the midterm elections. Talk about what these oil producers decided and why that affects both us as consumers and the Democrats in Congress.
Here we are talking about OPEC once again, just showing you the weight that they have in the global oil market.
Right.
So OPEC and its non-member partners, OPEC Plus as it's called, decided they would cut production by 2 million barrels a day. Now this is sort of a reversal from what they've been doing since basically July of 2020. So when COVID hit, they cut production big time, and then since 2 summers ago, basically they've been incrementally building it back up every month since then. And so now the cartel has decided to sort of reverse course, and basically the tack they've taken on it is they're looking at the global oil market. Prices have fallen significantly, and they've taken a position they want to sort of intervene and have some more stability there, because prices have been trickling down, relatively rapidly since the worst of the post-invasion hit to the oil market occurred.
Right. Russian invasion of Ukraine.
That's right. And so much of the volatility in the oil market has been driven by these sort of recession fears around the world. And so what they want to do is pull back some of those barrels and sort of beef up the price a little bit.
So will that potentially have Joe Biden reliving his bad summer with gas prices? I mean, he took a big hit when gas prices were high. Then later on, he had a little bit of a victory lap as they started to drop, and White House maybe implied that they deserve some credit for that. Is there a risk here for the president?
Or it's definitely sort of a reliving of the summer that Biden gladly left behind for a time, which sees him kind of going head to head with the cartel. What's happened is Biden and the Biden administration has sort of had taken a different understanding of what's going on in the market, different analysis than OPEC for much of the year. So when prices were so high, OPEC and the Saudis were really saying, we see that we're going to increase production because the economies around the world are standing back up again after COVID. But we don't see the high prices, the cause of the high prices really as being this massive supply-demand imbalance. The prices, it's what's driving the volatility, the OPEC and the Saudis were saying, is what's going on with the war in Ukraine and all this speculation, whereas Biden saying, we need more barrels, we need more barrels. OPEC, give us more barrels. And of course he went to Saudi Arabia to urge on the same thing. And they had continued increasing production, or at least their targets, and until this decision. And so yes, the expectation is this is going to put upward pressure on oil prices once again. Gas prices on an average basis had already been sort of ticking back up, with oil prices incrementally too in recent weeks. And so Biden is having to sort of try to stand OPEC down again and really face these issues that, again, as I said, he thought he'd kind of left behind.
So is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve an option, or is that tapped out? Or are there basically things that they've pointed to as their at least contributions to mitigating some of the gas price pressure earlier on? Are there things like that they can do again?
They've said that they would potentially explore it again. They haven't made any announcements to that effect. But what else? The other sort of thread to this we've seen continue to develop is kind of a battle between the administration, especially Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, and the U.S. refining sector over, the price dynamic and the really healthy margins that these companies have been seeing with prices so high. And she's urging them. These companies, the U.S. refining sector exported record amount of refined products in the first half of the year, more to Latin America, more to Europe, and so. The administration, Granholm again in particular, is urging them to either cut their margins or keep more of these products at home, sort of sell them more on the domestic market, which of course the industry says, look, the world needs our product too. It helps our geopolitical interests, helps our friends. And so they're again at loggerheads and potentially exploring limits on exports even. There's been a lot of chatter about that. Refiners met with Granholm and White House officials recently. Granholm came out of that with some pretty hot words toward them. And the refiners were saying, the first thing they said basically in the statement from the industry groups that were there said, she didn't take export limits off the table. And so they're sort of both trying to use the shadow of restriction on exports maybe to their advantage. In Granholm's case, maybe to convince them to export less, even though over the long term, that's kind of what the Biden administration wants, is more exports to help our friends. So they kind of have these competing interests.
So finally, obviously there's political impact on Biden, but it's the Democrats who are running this year who are much more imminently affected by any of the implications of high energy prices. And energy has been a campaign issue for a lot of down ballot Democrats. Talk about one example that you've seen up close.
So the one race where this has become a major issue and been a major issue is in the Pennsylvania Senate race between John Fetterman and Dr. Oz. And PA is a huge energy producing state, number 2 natural gas producer in calendar year 2021. Right. Huge shale basin there where they frack a lot of gas. Sure. And so Fetterman, as a liberal Democrat, sort of has this obligation to serve the Democrats' broader climate change agenda, which is aggressive against fossil fuels, in the aggregate, and to govern and vote in a way that doesn't harm this massive sector in his state. And he's been sort of bridging that throughout the Senate race. He's not committed to a fracking ban like Senator Bernie Sanders wanted in the 2020 campaign. Fetterman has criticized fracking in the past, but has sort of walked away from those criticisms.
And he is otherwise fairly progressive.
He is, yes. Bernie Sanders and Carhart, as one analyst told me. And so Oz and the Republicans are really trying to sort of pin, the Biden administration's green agenda and folks like Bernie, what he supports, onto Fetterman and have that weigh him down. And the polls have sort of tightened recently, but still Fetterman has the edge, and he's really pitching himself as a faithfully to labor unions, someone who will support the oil and gas sector, even though in the long term, he sees a need for this so-called green transition.
So Fetterman is basically running in the blue-collar Pennsylvania Democrat tradition, at least on some of these issues, but maybe some of Oz's wizardry will frame him in a different light.
Maybe so.
Thank you, Jeremy. You can read Jeremy and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.